Today I am going to have a batch baking session. Putting one thing in the oven is a waste of electric. My oven's big enough to do sometimes 3 recipes at once. So today I'm going to make an apple crumble because I still have some of these apples left and they're keeping really well. And I've decided to make bread today. I haven't made bread in ages. And the reason I don't make a lot of bread is because I just eat the whole lot. I love bread. But I'm going to make one as a, rather than doing the rounds that I normally do, I'm going to make one as a loaf so I can cut it and properly, I can use it properly, but also put some in the freezer. And if there's anything left, I'll make a round. So I'm going to do the crumble first, and then that can sit, and then I'll do the bread. It's been ages since I've made bread, so I wonder if I can remember the recipe. I need to make the buttermilk for it. I don't buy buttermilk, it's too expensive. So what I do, I take, it says a pint of milk, but I tend to find that leaves the bread too watery. So I tend to find about 400 ml does the job. And you put that into a jug with a tablespoon of lemon juice, leave it for 15 minutes, and the reaction basically creates buttermilk, and that's perfect for making soda bread. So I'm going to start first by, my milk is still defrosting, I'm not very organised today, I've nearly got enough. So I'm going to start by doing the crumble first, and then I'm just going to talk to you. And the reason I'm shooting from high up today is so that we can do everything all in one and I haven't got to keep moving the camera around because it's really distracting. The only problem with when you're doing baking and things like that is having to move the camera around so you catch all the action. If I can have one place where I can just leave it, that will work out much better. Okay, so first of all I am going to make the topping for the crumble, and then I can set that aside and then chop up all the apples and get all that ready. So, what do I need to do? Can't even remember. Miles away. Right. I'm just so disorganised. Oh dear. It's Friday. It's a Friday. It's pretty cold. It was about 8 degrees last night, but I was surprised because when I looked at the thermostat and it said 8 degrees at about 10 o'clock, I was like, oh, that's a surprise. I didn't feel that cold. I had my hot water bottle and my blanket and all that sort of thing. I was like, oh, well, that's all fine. And yeah, so still no heating on at the moment. We're doing okay. Let's make a big topping today. Let's go for it. Okay, right. So I'm going to do 8 of flour today, and then everything else will be on halves. Right. So. There's our flour, so I'm going to need less than 4 of sugar. And while I'm doing this, I'm kind of going to do an update on how I'm getting on with my health changes, because let's say a month and a half ago, I had really hit a rock bottom. My weight was ridiculously heavy, much heavier than I've ever been in my life. And I kind of lost control of my eating. I was eating too much. I knew I was eating too much. I was snacking continuously. I just couldn't stop. And that's a challenge when you work from home and the kitchen is next to you. It's a real problem. And I wasn't getting enough exercise, and I knew I had to change all these things. All these things now must change. So I was thinking about this more and more, and then I reached a snapping point, and it's right, this has to be now be dealt with. I must deal with this. This cannot keep going on. So I started cutting down on the sugar. First of all, I stopped having a morning coffee where I would put not sugar, but you can buy that cheap Sainsbury's maple syrup that you can use in baking, and I was putting a squirt of that into my coffee in the morning, and the squirt became a bigger and bigger squirt as time went on because it was just getting me addicted. I mean, the other thing that I was trying to get rid of was eating so many UPFs, the ultra-processed foods. These are the things that get you addicted. And once you start eating them and you start to eat enough of them, it's really hard to stop. So the more I had of this coffee I was having in the morning was also causing energy slumps in the afternoon. So I was really tired in the afternoon, or when I was going out cleaning jobs, I was really struggling to have enough energy to do the 3-hour cleans mid-morning, because it creates a massive artificial sugar spike. And your body can't cope with it. It's not designed for it. And of course, everything in these syrups and things is ultra-processed. It's not even real food. It's all chemicals and emulsifiers and all sorts of other things that get you hooked, and that's how they get you. And so I banned that in coffee, and then I was just having regular coffee for a few weeks, and now for some reason I cannot even stomach coffee. I've really gone off coffee. I've never been a massive coffee fan. The only reason I was drinking it was because it had all the sugar in it, and now I don't have that. I'm not interested in it anymore, which is great, because now I'm just back on tea, and that's fine. So let's get that out of the way. So this created a knock-on effect, because I noticed that as I was eating less sugar and less of the processed rubbish that I was snacking on, I found I wanted less, and I was thinking about eating less. So in between meals I wasn't thinking as much about, what have I got in the kitchen? And I was forgetting about things that I had bought. So I haven't cut everything out. If you watch my yellow sticker hauls, you'll see that I am still occasionally buying bread. I am buying a pack of donuts if they're really cheap. I have definitely not given up entirely, but my consumption of those things has dropped, I would say, quite significantly. And then of course the other thing I had to address was my lack of exercise, because I worked out that on an average week I'm only walking about 10 miles a week. And I wanted to do that 10,000 steps a day. I know it's an arbitrary figure that was created in Japan to get people moving more, but it equates to roughly 5 miles a day. And the challenge is, when do you get out to do your 5 miles a day? Now, I don't have the excuse of not having enough time, but there are all other sorts of other things that go with that. There's the motivation. It's boring just going out and walking around the block for 5 miles every day. The weather's not great now because we're now in mid-autumn. So very often the weather's horrible. And what if there are days where I am actually genuinely too busy to go out? There are days like that. And the problem was, I was stuck in this cycle of knowing I had to do more exercise if I was going to improve my health, but still not finding the motivation to do that. And I thought, well, what is that motivation going to be when I'm another 5 pounds heavier, another stone heavier, another 2 stone heavier? Where does it end? And so I'd started to research how I could get around the problem of needing to walk more and knowing I needed to walk more, but not wanting to have to do the whole outdoor thing. And I started to research walking pads, which are the indoor at-home version of a gym treadmill. They're much more compact, they're easy to use, and so I researched this for a few weeks and I watched tons of YouTube videos about them to work out which was the best. I did all sorts of research on them, and then I bought one. And if you've been watching my treadmill videos, you will know about the success that I'm having with that. So at the time of recording this, I am 5 weeks into using my treadmill, and I'm now doing, I think it's an average of, 36 miles a week I'm walking now. It's really easy for me to do because of my lifestyle and my setup. I work from home, I do quite a lot of admin, and I built myself a standing desk back in lockdown in 2020, using a spare ironing board, and I was inspired by lots of people on the internet who'd suddenly gone from working in offices or working from home but didn't have an office setup and didn't want to go out and buy expensive tables or didn't have the space for them. You can buy special standing desks and they come with lifts in them so they can lift to the right height for you, but they are expensive, and lots of people were using ironing boards, and I set mine up and I've never stopped using it. It's absolutely brilliant. So it means that I'm standing up all day, but that isn't exercise. It's still better than sitting all day. It's better for my back, it's better for my hips, all that sort of thing, but it's not exercise. I'm still motionless. So I bought this walking pad and I set it up so that it's underneath my standing desk, so that every time I'm using my laptop, I don't have any real excuse not to be walking. And my God, it's just so easy. It's easy for me because my balance isn't too bad. I thought it was going to be problematic, so I started out just using it to when I was watching a YouTube video or was reading an article, because that was easy. And I have experience with treadmills and gyms, so it wasn't like it was an unknown thing. So I did that, and then I started to do other things. So I found that I can type and I can edit my videos. So all those hours and hours that I spent editing my own YouTube videos to put up here, I can edit and review them and watch the finals whilst I'm walking. So 10,000 steps a day has now become small change. I can easily, if I want to, walk 12, 13, 14 steps a day. And it's not hurting me. I feel better for it. I feel I have more energy. All my energy slumps have now gone completely. And I've also started taking a couple of supplements. So I've decided to take vitamin D, because people kept telling me to take vitamin D. There's not enough sun at this time of year. So I've just started taking that. And I'm taking magnesium because it's supposed to be good for fatigue, tiredness and menopausal headaches, which is something I suffer from. So for the last, it's only been a couple of weeks since I bought them. I went down to Sainsbury's and they're really cheap. So I bought 2 months supply of each, which is what they come in the bottles. They're pretty cheap, and I'm giving that a go. So, oh, don't need that yet. So all these things have kind of come together because what you may or, well, you probably don't realise this about me, is that when I do something, I just do it all. There's no halfway house with me. So if I'm going to start running, I want to be running 15 miles a day, every day. If I decide I'm going to, you know, get fit, eat less, eat better things, if I just master that, then that's good. And I reached a point where, before I started all this, where I was right at the bottom of the hill. I felt I was stuck right at the bottom of the hill, trying to push a really heavy round rock up a hill, and I just couldn't do it. But I've done this before. I have been in a situation where I've reached my snapping point, I've had to do something about it, and once you start, and as long as you are patient, and you do everything in an enjoyable way, I wouldn't do anything that makes my life miserable. This is adding to my life. And I started to feel that I was getting that rock up the hill. And then recently, since I've done my last treadmill video update, I'm at the top of the hill now. And now I'm starting to roll down the other side. And that's because when I did my 30-day update for my treadmill, and I was concerned about things like energy usage, so I was looking at whether this thing was eating a lot of my electric, and it wasn't. I'd managed to balance that against not using other things in the flat, and it's only a minute difference, but every penny counts when your energy bills have just gone up because they put the prices up, so you have no control over that. So I dealt with that, and the other thing I wanted to do, just out of curiosity, I didn't feel very confident about it, was to step on the scales and see if I'd lost any weight. Now, bearing in mind all the things I'm doing, yes, I am walking 37 miles a week now, but I am doing it on a treadmill. It's not like I'm hiking that every day. But I've also cut down the sugar, and I'm cutting down on the junk food, and I'm snacking less. So I thought, well, you know, maybe something's changed. And I got on the scales, and I'd lost 5.5 pounds in 28 days. And I was really surprised at that. Now, I'm not going to say that that's down to all or anything. I would say that all these things are contributing. You cannot out-exercise bad eating habits. So had I not got my eating under control, it wouldn't really matter how many miles I did. I would still be fighting an uphill battle because of the ridiculous level of calories that I was eating. You know, if you eat less calories and burn more calories, somewhere along the line you're going to lose weight. It's a simple calculation. And I read somewhere a long time ago that I think it's 3,500 calories lost equals 1 pound of fat lost. And when I did the calculation based on how many calories I burnt, because I was using a pedometer which was giving me a rough estimation, and based on how much I'd lost, that actually is about right. So, provided I keep burning X numbers of 3,500 calories and not increasing my eating, my weight should continue to drop. Now, the other thing is that as you get fitter, as you lose the weight, your body will adapt, because our bodies don't want to lose the weight. Our bodies like to eat, and they like to be overweight, and they like to put on as many pounds as possible. So your body will adapt. So as you lose the weight and your body realises this, it will start to adapt to the exercise regime, and it'll start to adapt to hanging on to as many of the calories as you eat as possible. So you either need to drop even more calories of eating. I don't want to do that. I don't feel that I eat in quantities wise to excess. I also have an issue with a small budget, so I'm limited in terms of the really healthy food that I could potentially eat. And I don't especially want, well, I say that, I probably will start walking more miles. I think that I very often stop walking before I feel ready to stop walking, and I tend to do 10,000 to 12,000 steps a day. I could easily do more on some days, so I will probably allow myself to start doing that if I'm at the computer more, because the more steps I walk, the more I burn. And then I'm going to keep an eye on how that weight loss changes, because that weight loss is going to slow at some point as my body goes, well, actually, I'm going to compensate for this. I'm not going to let you lose all that weight. So I will keep an eye on that. The other things that I can do to up the exercise, as well as just walking more of the steps, is I can put an incline on the front of the machine, and you can't put massive gradients on it, but I do have some blocks of wood which I can just put under the front feet, and it will up it by an inch or two. And if I start doing that sometimes, that will make me work harder, because it's basically me walking up a hill in the same way. And I know that when I go out on hikes, when I walk up the hills, I definitely feel the burn more. And it will be better for other muscles in my legs and all that sort of thing. So I can also do that. I can pick a couple of days a week where I have it permanently on the incline to make me do more exercise. Right, there's my apple crumble. That's a week's worth of apple crumble there. So I'm going to pop that into the oven for a moment. And then I need to get on and do my bread recipe, which I always forget. First of all, I need to make the buttermilk. So yeah, so it's been a really this won't do anymore. Right, I can defrost for tea and coffee, cups of tea and things. I feel really positive about it, and because all these things, I always say don't do everything at once because you'll overwhelm yourself and you're more likely to give up. So I would say do little changes. Once you're acclimatised to that and you've made that part of your routine and that works fine, then add to something else. I don't want lemon juice, I want vinegar. Oh dear, oh dear. All over the place today. It's because I'm trying to focus on talking to you guys at the same time. Not in the mood for it today. I think that's enough. Is it that or is it the other one? Let me check. It's been such a long time since I've made this. Let me go and have a look at the recipe. Yeah, I was right, it is the vinegar. So, teaspoon of vinegar into the milk. Give that a whisk around. Leave that for 15 minutes. Right. I might grease my loaf tin. So it's been really positive, and I know that I need to focus on this and keep at it, so to speak. It's always going to need tweaking. But provided I stick to all my rules, hopefully I won't go backwards again. That said, I have been up and down all my life in terms of eating well, exercising, losing weight, gaining weight. It's hard to do the same thing all the time and always get it right. So it's just another attempt. My fear is that because I am now of an age where it's getting harder and harder to lose weight and easier to gain it, because your metabolism changes as you get older, and that's why we have in part so many overweight older people. Their metabolism changes, the speed that their body works changes, and of course their level of moving around and exercise and all that sort of thing also changes, and that's why everyone just looks so overweight and so unfit. Now I have a good marker in my parents who don't have any of those problems. I have stick-thin parents, so I have no excuses for being overweight, and it makes me feel awkward that I am the overweight person in the house. My brother is also stick-thin, although that's mostly caused to leading a very busy life and being under constant stress. Stress is always very good for your weight loss, generally speaking. And I certainly weighed less when I was under a lot of stress. Anyway, so, need some salt. A little bit of salt in there. Get the bicarbs again. Yeah, so I have good motivation for getting it right again. In particular, I'm down at my parents' and I notice how my snacking is bad when I've been down there previously. They don't reach for lots of food. They have breakfast in the morning and they'll have the kind of breakfast that I couldn't eat. So they'll have cereal, toast or croissants and all the things that you buy in the shops. And then they won't eat again till dinner time, which I can't do. I'm more of a don't want breakfast but will have lunch type person. And I couldn't eat the breakfast foods that they eat because, oh my goodness, if I ate cereals like that, I mean, I can gain pounds when I'm down there if I eat the way they eat. But, yeah, so challenges everywhere, and you just have to be very focused on staying in control. It is a constant battle. The problem is that retailers, when it comes to food, they're doing everything they can to make you want to buy the food. A lot of the UPFs that you see now, I've been reading Chris Van Tolken's book about the UPFs and about what they are and about how they work, and some of the ultra-processed foods can't even be described as food because there's no actual food in them. Everything is processed and chemicals, and there's no actual basis of actual food in any of them. And particularly now we have the cost of living crisis where, you know, shops want to keep making their profits, and they've been dumbing down on ingredients. So they've been taking out what might be considered better ingredients in some of their foods, going over to cheaper, even more processed stuff, so that they can pay less for their ingredients but keep charging customers the same. And it's pretty dreadful, to be honest with you. And one of my rationalisations for not buying so much of the rubbish as I used to is, why am I giving companies my money like this? It's like, if you are a smoker and you're giving companies, I don't know, I don't even know what a pack of cigarettes is now, what is it? £10 a pack now? God knows what it is. And the vapes. You are paying a company to kill you, to make you sick, to keep you addicted. And it's the same with these foods. Humans are hardwired for addiction. Anything that can be addictive and will have it. So it might be food, it's drugs, it's other sorts of chemicals, it's social media, it might be a certain kind of TV program, it can be all sorts of things. We are just hardwired for it. And you have to really stay on top and be aware of how you're changing, of when things are out of control. You can get hooked on coffee, and that's why places like Starbucks or whatever do really well, because I mean, they're not even making real coffee. If you look at the ingredients on what, you know, you'll go in and buy your double whatever it is in a blooming great cup, and it's got sugar and flavouring and all sorts of other things in it. You couldn't even call it a coffee. You're basically drinking sugar for breakfast. And all these things are just conspiring against us to keep us hooked, to keep us constantly needing more, to keep us giving them our money, basically. It's about profit margins. And that became my rationalisation. I tend to find that where the bottom line is money, I'm much more motivated to stop doing something. I don't want to give away what money I do earn to companies that just want my money for profit and don't care about me. And so it's made it easier for me to walk past the bread aisle in Morrison's, to walk past the bakery aisle, to, you know, just avoid all those things. It's made it much easier because my motivations are different. It's not, I want to eat less, I want to be fitter. It's, I would like to keep more of my money in the bank. And that's why my food bills in part are so low, because they also get you hooked on convenience. So you can get your bagged salad ready chopped. You can get your ready meals that you just shove in a microwave. You can get all those things, and you have to pay for convenience. So things that are ready done, things that make your life simpler, will cost you more money. And again, because of my lifestyle, like I am here today, I don't have the pressure of not having the time to cook. And I enjoy cooking for myself. I like doing this. This helps me to remain autonomous, which means that I'm in charge. This is all my doing and it's under my control. Today I decided I want bread, so I'm going to spend half an hour making homemade bread that comes out the oven, lovely and warm, and I get to eat it all. This is how I live my life now, and it's made me such a happier person. My life is slower, it's very uncomplicated, and it's taken years to get to this stage. I was 42 when I finally managed to take control of my life by quitting the 9 to 5, by ditching relationships. I've discovered I am not good in relationships. I'm very bad at picking partners, and if I'm entirely honest with you, I don't have any use for a partner. I'm an introvert. I love my own time. I love my own space. I don't want to have to be constantly doing things with other people, and most of the people I've dated have been spenders as well. So in order to feel that you are interacting with your partner and keeping up everything involved, going out to pubs, going out to restaurants, just so many things which, when you're on a small budget or when you don't want to spend the money and you feel obliged to, just makes life difficult. So I don't have to do that now. If I don't want to spend money down a pub, if I don't want to go out to eat, if I don't want to buy a rubbishy coffee in a Starbucks, I just don't do it. And I don't really like those things. You know, I do quite enjoy eating out, but I like it to be special. I don't want to be going out every week and doing it. So we tend to go out and eat when I go down to my parents', but they're quite particular about the kinds of restaurants they go to, so they spend the money. And the restaurants are nicer, the food is better quality, and it's a real occasion. Going out to eat is such a major thing for me. It's like a real exploration of flavours and tastes, and it's fun, and it's a social occasion because you're all right around the table having a conversation. And I was brought up in a family where you went to a restaurant, you sat there till they closed. We like to enjoy the whole ambience of it, and you get to chat to the staff, and it's just nicer like that. So they're real special occasions, really enjoyable, and I prefer it that way. I like that the things that I like to do are happening less, because it makes them more fun. If you're going out to eat every single Friday night, that must get so boring, doesn't it? It must do. Look at that. Loaf in a tin. Soda bread, done. That's it. That's a week's worth of crumble and probably a week's worth of bread there. I'll try not to eat too much of it. I've got some of that slow berry curd that I made recently, and I want to try that on hot bread and tonight for tea. I don't have anything planned for tea, so I'm going to do a couple of slices of this with a couple of fried eggs on the top. Lovely. That's what you want. There we go. So that's going to take, I think, half an hour to 40 minutes on a whatever the heat is. Anyway, I haven't planned this at all today. I just suddenly thought, I know, I'm going to bake and chat. But I knew that I needed to do these things and crash it out in one go. I've also been waiting for the final edit of my latest reservoir walk to process. That's slightly shorter than the other one, 1 hour 43 minutes I think it is. And it takes a while to download. Condenses it into a file that I can then upload to YouTube, and then YouTube will take as long as it takes, because that's the joy of only having 4Gs on the internet. It's not too bad actually, and the thing is I have got used to doing everything slowly. I'm used to having to wait for my internet to load. I'm used to having to wait for a TV programme to come on because I don't have a TV subscription, and I don't mind that. It's a slow pace of life. I don't demand anything now. Things happen when they happen. And it makes you more patient, and you stop demanding, and you know, your road rage behind the wheel goes, because things happen when they happen. Things take as long as they take. I've got really good at it. It's less stressful, and it means that I lead a simpler, quieter, gentler life. It's not perfect, there are lots of things that I would like to change, but there are things that are generally out of my control. Anyway, so that's my baking session done. I don't know how long I've been rabbiting at you. Oh, nearly 40 minutes. Okay, that's that. We're done. I'm going to pop these into the oven now, get the oven on, and I'll show you some pictures of how it looks when it comes out. Let's rescue you from up there, and I'll speak to you soon. Bye bye. Hot bread, straight out the oven, marge and slow berry curd. Homemade bread is the best. Hot bread, straight out the oven, covered in whatever you want. There was a time when this would have been peanut butter, and I went through tons of peanut butter, and it's something else I had to ban in the kitchen because a jar of peanut butter and a teaspoon is a snack, and I could go through a jar in a week easily, and that stuff is full of rubbish. Just so good. I must try not to snack, but you know it's going to be a problem, don't you? Which is why I only make the one loaf at a time, because there's only so much damage I can do with one loaf. Plus, it's not a UPF. There's no preservatives, there's no extra flavourings, it's just flour, bicarb, milk, some vinegar and some salt. Perfect on a cold Friday afternoon. That is so good. See, being able to cook your own food is a superpower. And it creates autonomy in your life because you're not dependent on horrible, greedy retailers and having to get to a shop. You can just make it when you want it. Alright, now I have to get back to work. Oh, that's so good.